Everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the MCP Connector, a tool that bridges AI to our Netsuite data in a secured and governed way. So this video was made by High ERP. We're a Netsuite consulting firm that specializes in digital transformation. We provide companies with an innovative solution and professional services that bring productivity and happiness to the workplace. So here's our agenda for today. So we're going to start from the very beginning and build a foundation. So what is AI? How does it actually work? And why does something like protocols even matter? We'll then talk about Claude, the MCP connector, and its benefits. We'll move on to governance and safeguards. And finally, we'll show you guys a few common cases. So by the end of this, we hope everything's all clicks together. So understanding AI. So artificial intelligence is the field of computer science focused on building systems that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. So things like reasoning through problem, learning from past experiences, understanding language, recognizing patterns, and making decisions. Now, I know that might sound like a lot, but AI is a really broad field. So think about it like a medicine. So, medicine isn't just one thing. It's surgery, pharmacology, radiology, psychiatry. So AI is the same thing. It's an umbrella term that covers many different approaches and techniques. So a few of the ones that we'll be covering that are more in our line of work and in the line of NetSuite are generative AI. So that's AI that can create new content from context. So like writing reports, generating Excel sheets, writing emails, and writing code. Predictive AI, so using AI to analyze historical data and even help make predictions on our current set of data. And finally, agentic AI. So those are AIs that are able to, given the access, complete tasks and run commands for you, like creating records without any manual intervention. So yeah, before we move on to the MCP, I just want to go over what AI is at its core. So fundamentally, AI is just probabilities. So AI doesn't really think, it doesn't really know anything with certainty. We've stripped away all the complexities you hear about AI. One thing to remember is that AI is really asking itself one question, and that's what is the most probable answer? And that's pretty much it. So every response, every output, every recommendation you get is the result of a probability calculation and not really a definitive truth. So you can think of it like this: AI guesses, but it guesses really, really well. So it's been trained on, billions of examples, and it's learned to weigh patterns very accurately, that the best guess is almost always a very good one. And I want to highlight three things to remember from this slide, and we'll be using computer vision AI as an example because it's visual. So AI is first not certainty. So every output has a confidence score behind it. It's not a definitive truth. So AI always picks the most probable answer and not necessarily the correct one. So I'm sure we've all seen AI output incorrect information before. Second, AI is pure probability. So patterns from the training data are weighed and ranked by likelihood. At its heart, AI is just math and nothing more. And secondly, third is the best guess wins. So the output you see is whatever you had the highest probability score. So based on every pattern the system ever seen. So if an AI model that is trained to categorize, let's say, animals, but was not fed any images of cats, you'll never get the correct answer. So when you ask an AI a question, you don't get a fact lookup. You're getting the best statistical guess based on everything it's been trained on. So always fact check the output, especially when you think your topic is niche. And unless it's programmed to not give you an output, AI is usually forced to provide an output, even when it has very low confidence on its answer. So the output of an AI is always a statistical guess. And if your requirements are very niche, it might not even be trained on to be able to give you a correct answer. So now we've established what AI is. It's just a really sophisticated probability. So now let's look at large language models. So LLMs are specific types of AI behind, let's say, Claude, ChatGPT, or even Copilot. So you give it context and it guesses what comes next. So that's generally all what it is under the hood. So if we look at this slide, if we look here, animal plus bark, it'll probably guess dog. Animal plus underwater, it'll probably guess fish. That's pretty clean and it makes sense. But what happens when you combine contexts that it's never seen together? So if we look at the third image, animal plus bark plus underwater, well, the model has no good answer, but it's not allowed to say that. So it makes something up, it commits to an answer, and it gives you a confident sounding output that is frankly a fish dog. So that's what we call hallucination. It's not really a bug, it's just how these model works. So they're always forced to produce an output, and even when they have no business in doing so. So all you see in these, so you see in these three examples, it can look completely convincing on the surface. So rule of thumb, if you're, again, is the more niche your question, the more you should verify the answer. All right, so now that we understand what AI is, we know on probabilities, we know that Claude, ChatGPT is an LMN trained up to predict the next word. But here's the problem. Claude lives in its own world. It doesn't automatically have access to our data, our system, or our business context. It can only work with what we give it in the conversation. So how do we connect something like NetSuite to it? So that's where protocol comes in, and let's talk about it. So a protocol is simply a set of agreed upon rules or language that allows different systems to work together seamlessly. So if we look at the example, at the United Nations, Japan, if they want to talk to France, if then France want to talk back to Japan, their rule, their protocol is, yes, let's communicate in English. And if we look at this, the next example, for network protocol, specifically Bluetooth, if your phone want to send data to your headphones and your headphones want to send data back to your phone, well, the communication, the protocol they have agreed upon is Bluetooth. And finally, if we want Claude now to speak to NetSuite and NetSuite to speak back to Claude, well, we've now established that we will be using MCP. So now that we have all the pieces together, the Model Context Protocol Connector is a free Oracle-built SuiteApp that creates a secure governed bridge between Claude and your live NetSuite data. So you can kind of think about it like a universal plug. Before MCP existed, if you wanted an AI to interact with NetSuite, you'd probably need to hire a developer and build a custom integration from scratch. But now with MCP, everything is standardized. So here's what's important about the NetSuite implementation specifically. Claude never gets direct access to your database. So everything goes through the MCP connector, which acts as a gatekeeper. It translates natural language into structured NetSuite commands. So you can ask Claude questions in plain English, and the connector turns it into something NetSuite will understand. And it enforces your existing NetSuite roles and permission. So the AI sees only what the user is allowed to see and nothing more. So this isn't just AI with access to your ERP. It's a control log permission enforced bridge, something that respects every security rule in NetSuite that's already in place.
So to help you understand better how the MCP connector works and how there's that permission enforced by the SuiteApp, a good analogy that we came up with is a library. So imagine your NetSuite instance is a massive private, very secure library where it's going to hold all of your records, so all of your transactions, your inventory, customers, financials, but they are organized in a complex and technical way that only the library experts are able to read. So when it's gonna be the client or the C-suite want to know something like how many blue sweaters did we sell last month, for example, well, the client sometimes doesn't know or doesn't have the time to build safe searches, reports to gather specific information. So in this case, they would walk up to the librarian, which is going to be the AI tool that we connect your NetSuite to, and it's going to be able to ask the question in plain English. Now, the librarian understands the question, and then they're going to translate that question into the library's technical language, which is SuiteQL, the one that's used for the MCP connection to NetSuite. And they're going to hand that request over to the security desk, which is going to be the MCP connector. So the MCP connector is acting as that gatekeeper, which is going to check the library card to ensure we have the sufficient permissions to access the books that we're trying to access, which in this case is the NetSuite role and permissions that we have sufficient permission to access perhaps sales section or the procurement section, depending on what our question is and what our role allows. So the security desk, they only care that you have sufficient permission to see what you want to see, and that nothing that's not allowed gets out of the library. So once you're cleared, the security desk is going to send one of the personnel to run into the stacks, which in this case is NetSuite, with the precise instruction on exactly which shelves to visit and what to pull. So that runner is going to fetch those books and it's going to give them back to the librarian. And then now the librarian, the AI, is going to do what it does best. So it's going to flip through those books. It's going to highlight the relevant information, spot the patterns, and bring the answer back to you in plain English. So it's not going to just dump you the raw data, but it's going to give you formatted in a way that is insightful for you to make actions. So to understand how the MCP connects to NetSuite, so on the far left, we got the business user, that's us, that's the client, that's the employees in a company, anyone who needs to ask a question about their NetSuite data, but they're not going to write it in like SuiteQL or navigate through safe searches and reports. We're going to be able to type that question in plain English in the AI tool. In this case, we're using Claude to demonstrate, but there are other AI tools which can be connected into NetSuite. Then that question is going to go to, in this case, Claude. And this is where the client can get nervous and ask, wait, so is Claude or the AI tool getting access into our NetSuite, or is going to have access to our credentials? And the answer is no. Claude has no idea what your NetSuite credentials are. It's never going to see them. What it does have is context. It understands your question, and it knows that it has a tool available called the MCP Connector that it can call to get that data. So Claude is going to pass that request to the MCP connector, and the MCP connector, as I was explaining before, is that gatekeeper. So when we establish a connection, we do it through a specific NetSuite role, not a username and password. And that role has the standard NetSuite permissions, and then it's also going to have two special permissions. One's called the MCP connector permission, and the other one is the auth 2.0 permission. And those two are what allow this integration to happen. So when Claude asks the MCP connector for information, the connector is not just going to go blindly fetch for it, but it's going to first ask itself, does this role actually have access to this data? As I was explaining before, if your role doesn't have specific access to a certain subsidiary, even if the user is asking the question, it's not going to be able to return that question back to you. If the permission check passes, the connector queries the NetSuite instance and returns those results back up the chain to the AI tool. And then artificial intelligence is going to be able to do what it does best, which is going to take the raw data, format it into something useful, a clear summary, a trend, a comparison, a recommendation, which all is going to be in plain English and ready to be acted on. Next slide. So this is just so you get a better idea of how that flow looks like. So there's the request, which it's a question that we want to know about our NetSuite instance. Then the AI tool realizes it needs to call an action to the MCP server. The MCP server is going to translate that into the NetSuite language. Then it's going to check our permissions. It's going to, if we pass, it's going to get that information and give it back down the chain to the AI, which is going to format it to us. Next one. So next we'll highlight some of the key benefits that we see of integrating AI to your NetSuite via the MCP connector.
So yeah, so what does MCP unlock for businesses? Well, number one, it's time saving. The MCP connector can replace manual repetitive tasks such as pulling reports, formatting exports, cross-referencing records by doing them in a matter of seconds. Second, we get tailored answers because the AI has now context about our actual business data. It doesn't give us generic answers. It gives us, answers grounded in reality. Third, we're able to talk to our data. So today we're getting an answer out of NetSuite often means knowing where to look, how to run a report, we're waiting for someone that knows how to run it. So with the MCP connector, any team member can ask any question in plain English and we get immediate answers. And finally, we get AI-powered analysis. So Claude doesn't just retrieve data, it can analyze it, summarize it, and surface trends, and turn it in raw NetSuite records into actionable insights.
So now to answer some of the questions that often clients have, we'll talk about some of the governance and safeguards that are put in place for this integration. So the first thing to know is that this is an Oracle owned product. So the MCP connector is a SuiteApp. So it's not a third-party plugin. It's a SuiteApp that is it's built and actively maintained by NetSuite themselves, and it's available for free. The second thing is, as I was stating before, your client credentials are never gonna leave your NetSuite environment. When we connect your AI tool to NetSuite, we use it. That's done using OAuth 2.0. It's a feature that we can enable within your NetSuite environment. So if you ever clicked sign in with Google on a third-party app, well, that's using OAuth 2.0. That's the same concept. So NetSuite handles the authentication on its side when the client logs into NetSuite, then authorizes that connection, and from that point on, Claude or whatever AI tool you choose is going to work through that secure scope session that's defined by the role permissions. So no passwords are going to be handed over, and the AI is not going to be able to have access to that information. Now the third thing is that the connection is role based. So when, as I was explaining, when we set this up, we create a dedicated NetSuite role with the MCP permissions assigned, and that role is what the connection is going to run under. So which means the AI is going to inherit exactly what that role can see. So if that role doesn't have access to see vendor bills, for example, well then even if you prompt the AI to search for certain vendor bill, it's not going to be able to fetch that information for you and return it. Or if it's scoped to only AR and revenue, that's all it's going to be able to give you. So it's not the AI's enforcement, but it's NetSuite's own permission model that does the enforcement. So in terms of auditability and operational integrity, so you can give permission to your AI tool so that when you are within the UI of the AI tool that you can create records, you can prompt to create a vendor or a customer, for example, or you can update those records. And if you update those records or create them from the AI user interface, well, that's all going to be logged in NetSuite just as if you would have created them within NetSuite itself. So what I mean by that is on the audit trail, you'll be able to see the user who made the change, the timestamp, and also the context. So you'll be able to identify if those records were created or updated um, from the AI tool that's connected to your NetSuite. And in terms of regulatory and privacy controls, so as I was explaining before, and my colleague as well, so this is not an AI that just has full access to your database, but instead it's the AI client fetches that data on demand through the protected endpoint that's the MCP connector. So your data is safe in NetSuite, and the AI just doesn't have access to it whenever it wants, but it's permission enforced and on demand. However, the query results sent to the AI model, obviously they do leave your NetSuite environment. So that's where the clients need to assess if they are okay with that and if their data policies allow, which takes me to the next slide. We recommend that for anything touching your NetSuite data, you probably want the enterprise or team plan, not a personal account. And why this matters is because enterprise and team plans they have very different tiers when it comes to data privacy, security, and compliance. On personal plans, the terms of service are written for individual consumers, while on team plans, you get actual contractual data protections designed for business uses. So things like data not being used to train your model. So on team and enterprise plans, your conversations and the data you send are actually contractually excluded from training pipelines by default, while on the personal plan, you need to opt out since it's already opt-in by default. Then there's also SOC2 compliance and audit rights, single sign-on options, more admin controls, so for centralized user management and the ability to see who's using it, enforce policies, and revoke access, and also zero data retention options as well. And the last thing I want to reiterate here is that if you do decide to connect your AI to the Netsuite environment, always verify the AI outputs. As my colleague was stating previously, it is super advantageous. It does help free time for us to work on and utilize our time more efficiently, but it's based on probability and it can sometimes give you inaccurate information. So you need to take accountability and verify the output that the AI is giving you. So now to show you the power and some of the use cases that we did on our demo account by connecting Claude to our demo environment, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know when you can see it.
Yep.
Perfect. So we pre-prompted Claude some questions since we found that depending on the complexity of the question, it can take anywhere from 1 minute to 8 minutes to give you that information, since perhaps it's creating reports, it's pulling information into an Excel file, etc., etc. So we'll show you some of the use cases that we came up with. First of all, our demo account is a professional services account. So we wanted to know employee utilization. So we asked Claude to pull all time entries for our employees, focusing on billable over the last year. We wanted to calculate each person's billable utilization rate and also to rank the team from highest to lowest utilization and to flag anyone below 65% utilization and anyone above 90. So the first group being the one below 65% is going to represent revenue leakage for the company, while the one above 90 could represent burnout risk. So we want to highlight that. Then we wanted to look at our open projects and the remaining estimated hours. And we want to know, do we have a capacity gap or a surplus over the next 180 days based on our current staffing? So we want to know if we need to hire, if perhaps we need to redistribute the work or slow down new sales. So then NetSuite went in, Claude went into our NetSuite environment and then gave us the dashboard. So at the top here is kind of a summary. It tells us that we currently have 6 active staff that have logged time within the last year. The total hours logged is 1,895 for all the employees. However, from those hours, only 1,521 are billable. So our billable rate is 80.2%. And we have a project backlog of remaining hours of 8,400 hours. And then here shows us our billable utilization by the employees. So we can see that Abram is at burnout risk since he's 100% utilized. Abigail is in the healthy margin, but getting close to burnout. And we also have Guyan, who is at burnout risk, while we see that we have 3 employees on revenue leakage, since we can see that they have been tracking hours, but 0 of those hours have been billable. So immediately here, we are able to take insight that we can take action from. So we can see that we need to redistribute the work, and we can identify that we have a lot of backlog hours that we need to take care of. If we continue going down the lane, so here it gives us some insights. For example, it's going to tell us that we have employees that are overutilized, but the team cannot service the recorded backlog of 8,400 hours within the 180 days that we asked. but it's even saying at this pace, those hours we won't be able even to fulfill them in 3+ years. So this signals something. First of all, it says significant data quality issues in the project records. Many are open projects, but however, they are likely abandoned or already completed and not closed. And number two, we have a genuine resource crisis requiring immediate action, but it's highlighting that we need a portfolio cleanup should be the first step before any hiring decision. So here it's resurfacing an issue that I I wasn't even looking for, but it sounds like a bigger issue we have within our NetSuite instance, that we have to clean our data, because we have a lot of open projects that um, they are likely abandoned or perhaps completed but not closed. So then it's going to give us some recommendations. First of all, it's telling us that we should take a look at our projects. We have 120 open projects with 0 completion rate and no end dates, which strongly suggests that we have a data issue. Number two is going to tell us to investigate why we have 3 consultants, however, they have 0 billable. Perhaps they're doing internal work, and we need to investigate what's the root cause, that they are tracking hours, but they're 0 billable hours, so revenue leakage. Number three, to address the burnout risk. So it's telling us that we have two consultants that are burnout risk, and however we have 3 that are non-billable. So perhaps we can redistribute the work, and then it's going to tell us some other insights here below. And then here at the bottom, it's going to say in written format, more or less what we are seeing here on the dashboard, that we have consultants that are at the burnout threshold. However, we have 3 people that are unutilized, that there's a capacity gap that we need to look into. We have 8,400 hours of backlog, 120 open projects. And then it's going to answer the 3 questions that we had asked on the prompt, which is, we want to know, do we need to hire, redistribute the work, or slow down new sales? And then it tells us hire, not yet. First determine if the 3 people who were non-billable can be billing staff. If so, perhaps we could triple the effective capacity without a single hire. Second of all, should we redistribute the work? Yes, immediately. We have 2 people who are at burnout risk, so it's highly suggesting we do redistribute the work. And slow down on new sales. It's recommending yes, that we do until the true active backlog is known, and that we figure out what is going on with all those open projects that we have in the instance. So that's the first use case we wanted to show you. Now, if I go back to my use cases, another very useful use case that we came up with is more on the projects themselves. We wanted to Claude to help us analyze our active projects within the last year. And now, for each project, we want to know, we wanted to show total revenue recognized, total costs, and the resulting gross margin percentage. We also want to rank projects from most to least profitable, and flag any projects where actual costs have exceeded the original budget or estimate by more than 10%, and any projects where margin has fallen below that 25%. Now, for the underperformance, we want a breakdown of what's driving that overrun. Is it labor cost? Is it expense overruns, or perhaps is scope creep through change orders? And lastly, we want Claude to give a summary of the top 5 most profitable and top 5 least profitable projects with a one-line diagnosis of each. So perhaps we can spot patterns of what's not making them profitable, or what's making those top 5 very profitable. So then Claude is going to call the MCP connector. It's going to gather that information for us, and similarly, it's going to give us this dashboard. And then so here at the top, it gives us a general overview. It tells us that we have 28 projects that do have financial data out of the 160 that are active. The total invoice revenue is 1.6 mil. The projects that are below that 25% margin are 9, and projects with budget overrun are 6. And then I want to highlight this important notice that it gives us here. So similarly to the other prompt, Claude is telling us, hey, look at your data. You have a data quality issue. You have 132 out of 160 active projects that have no estimated revenue or cost entered in NetSuite. And it tells us, so the analysis below is going to cover the 28 projects that do have usable financial data, and that a portfolio cleanup is strongly recommended. So then from those 28 projects that do have financial data, it gives us the breakdown from most to least profitable projects in NetSuite. And it's going to give us that breakdown by project. It's going to highlight the customer, the invoice revenue, estimated cost margin, and so on and so forth. Now we can click on this field at the top to move to the different questions that we had asked Claude for. So on the top and bottom 5 diagnosis, each highlights the top 5 most profitable projects, and then the bottom 5 least profitable, and then the one note that we can read to gather more information. For example, if we look at this one, negative margin, so the estimated cost is 27K, while the estimated revenue was only 23K. So here it gives us some insights. The deal was underpriced at the quote stage. Scope or pricing needs correction. So here it's telling us some insights that we can take action from. So perhaps we need to be wary that we are underpricing our projects at the quote stage, and we need to be more careful when we are scoping them, that we give a more accurate number so that we don't lose money at the end of the day. And then the flag and overrun here shows us the projects that are below the 25% margin, and the projects that have that overrun driver and the primary driver. For example, on this Vector financial deployment project, it highlights that 92% of the labor costs are complete, and we have incurred $150,000. However, we've recognized 0 revenue. And then the bottom here, similarly to the other one, is going to give you a written format of what we're seeing here visually. And then it's going to recommend us some steps. So first of all, to look at our data and make sure our data in NetSuite is clean and accurate. And then it gives us more specific recommended actions towards specific projects themselves. And then lastly, it tells us if perhaps we would like this information in an email for the leadership team or for a colleague. And then I say, yes, please draft me both. And then it gives me a preview of what that email looks like, so I can read it, I can make changes if needed. If I like it, if I have my email connected to Claude as well, I can just simply click send via email, or I can copy and paste that on my email. And then here is the other email as well. So now moving on to our next use case that we want to show you is perhaps you really like the insights that Claude is giving you, but you want to be able to take that information and work with it, use formulas, co-work with your team members, perhaps project managers want to work together with it. So here we prompted Claude to give us a project health scorecard, but we wanted we tell it to give us as an Excel file. So Claude can give you information in Word document, in a PowerPoint format, or in an Excel file. Here we wanted to give us the health scorecard in an Excel format, so that perhaps you and your team can take that outside and make formulas, drill down into specific information to understand it and to make more sense on the information. So then Claude goes into the account. It gives us, it's telling us it came up with 3 sheets. The first one is a health scorecard. The second one is the risk summary, and the third one is the bill gap analysis. And this is what it looks like. And if I don't like anything, I can have a conversation with Claude and tell it to add a specific thing or to remove something. And if I like it, I can simply download it and then start working from that Excel file. Now, the last case we want to show you, which we find has a lot of value for clients, is perhaps the client um, wants to see a specific report and a safe search is not able to do it, or a net or an out of the box report or a customized report doesn't have the capability to do it. Well, then with Claude, you give a lot of context on what you want to see on that report, on that dashboard. Perhaps you want to see several reports all together, and so that's what we did here with Claude. We told it so from NetSuite, please create a dashboard, and we wanted to contain 3 tabs. So the first one, we wanted to be an overview. We wanted it to be a billable versus non-billable hours by project. The second one is going to be more of a P&L analysis of the project. So we want to know the estimated versus the actual revenue comparison. And then lastly, we want kind of like a project KPI scorecard for our current projects. So then it's going to go into our NetSuite, it's going to gather that data, and then it's going to create an artifact. And I'll show you what that artifact looks like. So as you can see, it's very visually appealing. It immediately allows us to understand the information. It shows us our billable versus non-billable ratio by project, our overall billability rate by the projects. And then on the second tab, it's going to show us the revenue versus cost versus our gross profit. And then we can hover over each project to get that specific information. And then on the third tab is that KPI scorecard that we asked for. So it's going to tell us if the project is healthy, if it's at risk, or if it's critical, for example. And then it highlights the revenue, the gross profit margin, and the percentage completion. And let's say your leadership team or management really likes what this dashboard looks like, and they would like to see it every day on their NetSuite environment, since it's giving them very useful information. Well, then with the help of a tech team here at Sky High, we can definitely do that. I'll go ahead and show you what we did here. This is the demo account that we've been using for the use cases. So I'm going to switch over to my administrator role where we have that dashboard. And here we wanted to get kind of like a financial intelligence dashboard where we get the health of the organization in terms of revenue versus expenses and cash flow, etc. So we prompted Claude similarly to the one I was showing you in Claude itself, and then it came up with this report where it shows revenue versus expenses, and we can change throughout the years, and it's dynamic. So if there's a new transaction in 2026, we can simply refresh, and it refreshes fairly fast. And then we also wanted to know a expense breakdown by the different categories, and we can hover over them and see the different amount. Or if we wanted more detail, we have here a more detailed view to understand exactly how much we're spending by category. Then we also wanted to know the cash flow of the organization throughout the years, and we wanted to know a trend of new customers by month, and also to highlight, similarly to save searches and reports, if you wanted to drill down and search for a specific invoice, for example, 1006, we can see it here, or we can also drill down by year. And then if we want to know more information about that specific invoice, we can simply click on it, and it'll open the invoice itself. So these are just a few use cases that we came up with, so you can get an idea on how powerful connecting your AI to your NetSuite environment can be. It can give a lot of insights, and if you're interested, don't hesitate to reach out to the Sky High team, and we'll be happy to help you.
All right, so yeah, let's bring it all together in our key takeaways. So The MCP Connector is a free Oracle-built SuiteApp that bridges Claude AI to our live NetSuite data securely without ever exposing our credentials. AI sees only what the user is allowed to see, so everything is role-based access controlled, and Oracle owns permission models to do the enforcements. You don't have to configure anything on the AI side. Third, there's general use cases that can deliver a lot of value, just as my colleague has showed earlier. And finally, governance is built in and not bolted on. So every tool call is logged in NetSuite. Results should always be validated against source records before being used for decision or financial actions. So bottom line is the MCP connector gives teams a smarter, faster way to ask questions within the exact guardrails that we already have in control. Yeah, so thank you, and thank you for watching.